All right, welcome back to Kinesis PT and Performance. For last week's video, we talked through how to do a hip hinge. This week, we're gonna be talking through how not to do a hip hinge. So we're gonna kind of hit on some of the common errors we see people make and how this is an issue and why you don't wanna do those things. All right, we're gonna show you some of the common mistakes we see people make when they're doing some sort of hip hinge exercise, again, with deadlifts, squats, lunges, what have you. So the first thing we're gonna show is a side profile, because we're gonna talk about position of your cervical spine, lumbar spine, rib cage, pelvis here. So a really common cue I see people give is big chest. So they tell people to stick their chest out. And you see what happens as soon as we do that. We get this huge lumbar lordosis here, and there's some problems with that. Again, going back to our muscular canister at our core, we've elongated our TA. When my ribs flare up, they externally rotate, which actually depresses my respiratory diaphragm. So my diaphragm's coming down, which means the pelvic floor diaphragm, so our pelvic diaphragm is coming down. So your puborectalis, pubococcygeus, iliococcygeus, those are all getting stretched out right now in this position. So definitely not a position you want to be lifting weights in. So go ahead, go back into that position. And if we squat down here, the other thing we're going to get is loading through our facet joints. Again, going back to defects of our pars interarticularis, so a spondylolysis progressing into a spondylolisthesis, and FAI or hip impingement in the front. So yeah, we don't even need to show. You guys get the point. That's not a great position to go into. Now, we might have a good setup, but the other mistake I hear people make, or a cue they give, is telling people to look up when they're coming up out of a squat or a deadlift. So go ahead. So go ahead and let's show them what that looks like.
So hinge or squat?
Either one, hinge or squat, but just as you're coming up, I want you to look up. So if you notice, let's show them that one more time. As she starts to look up, that's what we call extension of the cervical spine. The rest of your spine is going to want to follow suit. It's just a neuroreflex. It's a pattern. So as soon as we go up there, we're going to get that extension through our back. And again, we're going to go right into that position I just described. That's not something we want to do. So instead of looking up, we tell people to have a very neutral gaze. So try to relax your eyes so you're not really focused on one thing as you're doing this motion. And we want to keep a nice neutral neck as we're doing this. Can you just show them what that looks like? Perfect. So she's not focusing her eyes on anything. All right, now we're going to show you something from the front here. So let's turn this way. Another cue I see a lot of people give is pulling your knees out, or we'll see people roll to the outside of their feet. Sometimes we'll say pull the floor apart. This can be kind of a dangerous cue to get into this position. Let's show them what that looks like, and we'll kind of talk through why this can be an issue.
Feels weird.
Yeah, it does feel weird. So pulling your knees out. Again, the idea is most people cue this to try to not go into a knee valgus. They're trying to stimulate recruitment of the glutes. So the issue with this is that when we are going into hip flexion, meaning a hip hinge, so as our knees are moving up towards our chest, our hips are actually internally rotating. So if I take my femurs and now I pull them apart into abduction and external rotation, I'm going against the normal, what we call osteokinematics, so the normal way the joint moves. I'm fighting against that. And I'm also going to predispose myself to an anterior pelvic tilt. So when we talk about, again, FAI and low back problems, this is a great way to put somebody into that position. So we really don't want to do that. The best way to get somebody to activate their glutes correctly is to get their core set up and make sure they have proper footwear on for good neurosensory input. So they can find their heels, they can find the arch of their foot, and they can use the inferior fibers of their glutes to perform hip extension. This isn't a hip external rotation exercise. The external rotators are only there to stabilize. Is there anything else you want me to add to that?
No, I think that was about it.
All right. Hope that helps, guys. Understand that's what not to do when you're doing squats, deadlifts, RDLs, any type of hip hinge. Coaches, trainers, try to not use those cues that we went over. Please reach out with questions. Share with a friend as always. Thanks for watching.